Welcome back to yet another episode of the Inverted Microphone. We are finally back to talk some Premier League action and talk who is the title contenders and while who may be going down as well. We're going to try to talk about all 20 Premier League teams that we can in this hour that we have. I'm Reese Goodall, joined by Joel Lara Jr. Joel's the reason we haven't had a podcast in the last week and a half. You know why? Because he flew to Manchester. He tried out to play for Manchester United. As you can probably tell, given that he's back here on the podcast, he failed rather miserably. But Joel, how was your experience in Manchester?
It was amazing. I love the city, love the stadium. Yeah, just everything about it was amazing. No, but in all seriousness, um, I have been working like a dog day and night, like the meme. Hence the reason why we haven't been able to record. But I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. It was really Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments about immigrants the other day that set him off and made him decide not to sign the contract with Manchester United. But we will not be talking about that on this podcast. We've got a Premier League midweek fixture set to review. Joao, it was quite the fixture. Poor old United Strand isn't getting a haircut. Arsenal had quite the disappointing draw, which seemed rather obvious to me from the second the match was announced. But no Premier League action this week. We've got an FA Cup fixture set, which we'll probably not talk about just because we'll see. We'll put a pin in it. Midweek Premier League next week. Arsenal play Wolves. That's weirdly the only midweek game. And then there's weekend games as well. Arsenal, we'll start with them first, Joao. They drew 1-1 to Brentford. They went up 1-0. They played one of the worst first halves of football I think I've seen from Arsenal all season long. It was a Noni Madueke header in the 61st minute before they were bit by the bug that they have given to so many other teams this season in conceding a set-piece goal to Keane Lewis-Potter in the 71st minute. Overall, for Arsenal to not come out victorious, their lead on the title over Manchester City drops to only 4 points. Joao, what are your thoughts on Arsenal not ending up victorious here?
I just think that it's classic, right? A lot of people. I like to look at internet reactions after games like these, and I think it's so true. In Arsenal just starting to sort of bottle it, and it's very disappointing, right? Just because they've had great things going for them this season, they've been able to be continuous with their style of play and everything, but it's just these mid-table clubs. They're similar to a Manchester United where they can't really they can't really eke out the result, and it just ends up affecting them overall. Not a good result for Arsenal. Obviously, you have to try to hold on. There's only 29 minutes left of the game after Madueke scores. Tighten up a little bit, help yourselves out. Man City's catching up, and once again, we keep on repeating ourselves, right? Week after week after week. It's not going to be an easy opponent to try to beat out if you're going down to a final match week.
Absolutely. And they still do have to travel to the Etihad, which could be a big 6-pointer in there. Some stats before the match, and I texted these to my dad, and I was like, don't like any of this. Probably going to be a draw or a loss. Arsenal, with John Brooks as the referee, won their last 3 matches, and they'd also won their last 4 matches away to Brentford. It was setting up a draw. I have to say, the first half in this game, I don't want to beat a dead horse that has been beaten beyond belief, but I know he's scored quite a few goals in the last few games. He scored twice against Sunderland, once against Leeds. Victor Gyökeres, man. This guy is just not a Premier League striker. I joked in the beginning of the show about how Joe Lara Jr. went to Manchester to sign for United. He should have gone to North London and signed for Arsenal. I think, honestly, that this guy'd be a better striker than Victor Gyökeres. It's so frustrating to watch him as a player because I have tried at times to be more positive with some of the other things that he does and not just focus on what he does inside the 18-yard box, really the 6-yard box as well, and focus on some of the runs that he makes. And I think a lot of the times that he has success when he makes these runs, when he tries to move forward, it comes down to errors from the other team's defense. And now that sounds kind of like cliche and obvious, but it's stupid mistakes. Like against Bournemouth, there was a run where Victor Gyökeres was making a run into the 18-yard box. Bournemouth, for some reason, surrounded him with four defenders, right? And there's no reason on earth. There are a few players on this planet that deserve four players surrounding him in the 18-yard box, and it's Messi, Ronaldo, and Joao Lara Jr. It's just not a player that is good enough. Ebereche, as a subbed off at halftime, he also has not been good enough in an Arsenal shirt. And I think when it comes down to it, if they're going to go on a Champions League run, if they're going to continue going far into the FA Cup, not having the depth in this attack is going to harm them.
And I think that's something we've talked about multiple times on every single occasion that we've mentioned Arsenal. Victor Gyökeres not being good enough. I'm not going to touch the topic again just because if you watch the show or even if you watch the highlights, my opinions on Victor Gyökeres. And we're getting to that point where you can start labeling it as a flop because, yes, he scored, but he's not proving himself as the striker he was 365 days ago when he was playing in Portugal. And even then, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is going on with him? Because he goes from being a key player, a very influential player, a very fluid, a very phenomenal player at Palace, goes to Arsenal. What do you think is going on with him? Is the shirt too heavy for him? Does he not have the same support that he had at Palace? What are your thoughts and opinions on this?
I think there's two things wrong with Eze in this Arsenal side. I think one is the overall kind of tactical setup that Eze is playing in. I think Eze would play better if there was more fluidity. I think Eze needs the ability to be able to drop in, play as a winger at times, play, off the left or the right hand side instead of being stuck in this central role. I also think the system doesn't provide enough of I don't want to say reliance on Eze, but enough space for him to be able to get his job done. And then to your point also, I do think that the shirt might be a little bit too heavy for Eze because this is the biggest club he's obviously ever played for. It's his boyhood club, and he's joined off the backs of three straight seasons that ended in disappointment for Arsenal. They've got to find a way to win a title this season in any competition, preferably the Premier League after, again, the three consecutive second place finishes. It's a lot of pressure for a player to come into. And then with that being said, he's the backup to the captain of the squad, Martin Odegaard. So it's difficult. It's a difficult position. I think I'm willing to give him a lot more leeway than a Victor Gyökeres because he has that Premier League experience. And that's something we have talked about so many times on this podcast is it's difficult to translate to the Premier League from certain leagues, right? But getting into the Premier League or getting a player from the Premier League that's played in the Premier League, that's done great things in the Prem is always something that's going to help you out.
Obviously, and we say the term all the time, Prem proven players who have been in the Prem, players who have shown themselves in the Prem. It's not something in terms of bias. It's just body armor, please sponsors, by the way. It's not something of bias. It's the Premier League, hands down, best league in the world. And you get these factors from when teams compete in Europe. You get these factors from how much money each team spends in the Premier League in comparison to La Liga, Bundesliga, Liga. And I'm not going to get into this too much, but you need these players who have demonstrated themselves. And I totally agree with you with Eze. He needs that time. He needs to adapt. It's much more of a different situation than Victor Gyökeres. And I've said this from the beginning as well. Arsenal is going to struggle if they don't have that depth. If players keep on going out, if they keep having injuries, if they keep having these situations where either they don't have a viable replacement or the replacement isn't up to the standard, the Prem can run away, the Champions League can run away. And it's just, those are the competitions you want to win. Yes, you've seen Arsenal win an FA Cup years ago, right? But
6 years ago now.
6 years ago. That's insane. That boggles my mind. And that's their best chance at a trophy right now as we speak, with the way things are going and at least in the Premier League. And if the things start translating over to the Champions League in the wrong way as well, we could see them crash out in a very dramatic fashion as well. And that's not something you want to see if you're an Arsenal fan.
No, absolutely is not. Um, Moving on to their biggest title rivals at this point, currently sits second in the Premier League. They had a really good win against Fulham, in a 3-0 win. Before that, they beat Liverpool 2-1. That's Manchester City. Manchester City, we have been talking about them quite a bit over this season, in various different fashions. You know, we've spoke about how Pep Guardiola could be on the hot seat if they end without a trophy. They went through a really rough patch in January, and they lose to United. It was obviously again the rough stretch, but Antoine Semenyo, he's been great this season. 5 goals, 2 assists in just 8 appearances since joining in January. Um, Again, they're not that far away from Arsenal. Joao, what are your thoughts on what Man City could do this season?
Well, I've said it. I've said it before. At least at the halfway mark of the season, I said, "Hey, City's scary. City has some nice signings. City is starting to finally form a well composed squad. They could go ahead and compete for the Premier League title, and that's still the case. Honestly, Arsenal is very, 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 very concerning right now. We've talked about them. 4 points is not that big of a gap. City is 4 games unbeaten since that loss to Manchester United, which, in my opinion, was a wake up call. It's this City squad is getting their stuff together. Gianluigi Donnarumma finally finding his footing, finding his place in the Premier League, not struggling as much. This back line very well composed as well. I love the way they work that ball from the back, the way we've seen it, with Manchester City in years prior. This team is going to be scary, and this team is going to continue beating on these Fulhams, beating on these squads, just because they have the firepower to do so. And all around, they're just a very well composed team at the moment.
Absolutely, and I love the way their front three is playing. It's very versatile, which is something that you wouldn't expect when you have a striker like Erling Haaland, who you pretty much only consider to be an out and out number 9. And I think that's a very unfair profile that people have given him. But the way that Semenyo, the way that Foden, the way that trio, and you mix in a Ryan Cherky in there as well, the way that they all rotate to work together and build these attacks, it's very fun to watch. It's very beautiful to watch at that same time. And again, these smaller teams like a Fulham, it's going to be difficult to stop them, and it's a recipe for disaster. I think for an Arsenal, for a team that's been struggling breaking down low blocks, to be in a title race against a team that is the polar opposite against low blocks. So again, we'll have to see how the wind blows in this title race. Again, I really think that Manchester City's transfer window was so instrumental into this title race process. I mean, what did Arsenal do in this transfer window?
Crickets. You need to insert crickets
Yep, I
whenever we
know.
do post production.
And City goes out and buys two of the best players in mid-table sides in the Premier League. So we'll have to see, wait and see. Had to get that one in there. I tried to not say it, but Aston Villa, third place in the Premier League. Been weird for them lately. They only have 2 wins in their last 5, 2 losses. The wins, Newcastle away, 2-0 win. That's a very good win. St. James Park, not easy to play at. It's beautiful to some people, ugly to others. And then they have a weird game against Brighton where they just barely eke out a 1-0 win. Not many chances in that game. It was, by all accounts, one of the ugliest games of the season. James Milner did become the Premier League's joint leading Premier League appearance holder. But Villa, they're third place, but it feels like they're hanging on by a thread. They're only 5 points above Man United. Is this something where they're not going to be able to hold on for that long?
I Once again, it's just Villa season being up and down, side to side, like a roller coaster, hasn't really helped them out, right? Formula One fans are gonna get that reference. Um,
I don't.
it's it's very difficult to say for this Aston Villa squad. But here's the thing: if they keep on getting results against these Brightons, if they keep on getting these results and just winning these games, That's what's going to push them through. That's what's going to get them through. They have the squad for it. They're starting 11. Once again, we've talked about Morgan Rogers. We've talked about this midfield as well with Douglas Luiz and this backline, which has really surprised me as well. It's a combination of experience. It's a combination of youth as well with the fullbacks. Honestly, I just once again, it all depends on how the ball continues to roll for Aston Villa. If they can continue to pick up these good results, well, hey, we could see them top three, which I know that Villa fans are going to be absolutely ecstatic for at the end of the season.
I'm looking at their fixture schedule to end the season, and they do have some difficult games in there in the final 12. Like Man United away, their final two games of the season are Liverpool home and then Man City away. But the other 9 games in there, I'm probably favoring them to win. I'm not going to go through each one, but Leeds, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, West Ham, 4 teams in the relegation race that they have to play. They also have to play Burnley. They also have to play Tottenham, who are a relegation race favorite now. It could be pretty favorable for Aston Villa if you can just pick up a point or two against those bigger sides. Um, I don't know. I've been very intrigued by Villa this year. I think Arsenal gets the whole like, oh yeah, they're just an elephant on the end of the branch. That's really what I've been expecting from Unai Emery this season and Aston Villa as a whole. It's just like, when is it going to collapse? Because they don't score a lot of goals. They've only scored 37 in the league, but they concede so few. They've only conceded 27. But how sustainable is that? Especially with an Emi Martinez in goal, who I famously do not rate. So, again, we'll have to see how the ball rolls. That's a good one, Joao. That's a good one. Man United, Joao, probably broke the hearts of many on Wednesday by drawing with West Ham United. They had a chance to win 5 games in a row for the first time in a millennium, costing the United strand of a haircut. Devastating, devastating result. Listen, I don't really care about the haircut. I'm sorry, but there is just not a world where you can go to the London Stadium, play West Ham United, who are very bad, are currently 18th in the Premier League, only 3 points above safety, but being outperformed on expected goals. I know expected goals is fluky for 1 game sample size, especially with a goal like that for Thomas Suchek. But they didn't produce chances. That's really the end-all be-all for Man United. They did not create chances. They had all of the ball. And it took a 96th-minute equalizer from Benjamin Šeško to get anything from this game. I think all in all, Joao, what's that ringing? You know what that is? That's the United strand calling to cancel his haircut.
That's wow, what a transition. Well, I just think it's a very difficult one. This game once again just very disappointing. And what did I say at the beginning? What did I say at the beginning? If you can insert a flashback to this moment and what I said Michael Carrick needs in order to stay as head coach of Manchester United, well, it's sort of right there, right? It's he needs to beat these mid-table to relegation teams. What happens here? Defensive, just absolutely horror class. I don't even know what word to use to describe it. It was just that terrible. They weren't aggressive trying to go up. They weren't trying to recover the ball. They weren't trying to sort of do all these things that they were doing against City, Arsenal, Fulham, and Tottenham. And what that do? They end up conceding to Sushek, which honestly I thought I'd never see in a million years. When I saw him score, I was just like, yeah, it's expected. It's whatever. But this team has a lot of things to work on still. It's something that they're gonna have to continue to try to do. But here's the thing that they have to realize: shortest season since 1915. We've said this before. 40 matches in this season, no pressure. They're similar. They're similar to our favorite basketball team, the Phoenix Suns, because the Phoenix Suns were not expected to do anything this season. Shout out to From the Nosebleeds, Cole Ferrer and Zach Dorosic. Same thing,
No,
Manchester United.
we only shout out Ko. We don't shout out Zach Dorosic.
The same thing with Manchester United. Nobody expecting them to do anything. So if you finish top three, top four this season, that's honestly a success. But you have to continue getting those results. And what happens there, right? It's you have to see how they play against Everton, and I think that's going to determine how the squad is going to continue. If they can get up and continue throwing punches and continue to do things, well, hey, you're in a great spot. But if they continue just going down from here, then hey, start sounding the alarms, start looking for a possible replacement because Carrick might not be that guy.
I'm looking at Man United's fixture schedule to end this season. They obviously play Everton, who are in 8th place. They've got a game against Chelsea, game against Brentford, Liverpool. But it's not that bad. It's a lot of mid-table sides that, you've mentioned so much that Michael Carrick has to do well against in order to be able to keep this position for next season and into the future. It's going to be a difficult task for Manchester United, no doubt about that. And listen, I think it's hard not to overreact to this West Ham game, given that it's West Ham. You should never be losing or drawing, rather, to West Ham. It should never take you a 96-minute equalizer. And then also the United Strand kind of added some stakes to that. But listen, you're coming off a 4-match winning run, right? And you beat two really good sides in that run, two of the title contenders. I know you have that ugly game against Fulham, but you still get the win. You beat Spurs, which anyone can beat Spurs, so not saying much there. But everything's kind of going right for Manchester United at the moment in a good way, like really, really good way. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens because I think we've sometimes talked about, like, with these teams that I don't want to say go on Cinderella runs to the top four, because Manchester United being a Cinderella to the top four is something that should never be thought of, right? Because they have one of the biggest budgets and one of the biggest clubs in the world, okay? But if they finish top four, they'll be Champions League football next season. Sometimes we've seen in the past, Aston Villa did it a couple years ago, Newcastle United as well this year, and the first time they made it back to the Champions League, where a team gets that Champions League football, and it's probably a year too early for them. And what happens is next season they have to play all these matches because, again, as you said, they're only going to play 40 games this season. Excuse me. They're only going to play 40 games this season. Next season, you have to add in at least 8 more for the Champions League. It's going to start to pile up. You're going to get into the mid-50s, really, if you succeed in the cups like you hopefully should. And I'd be intrigued to see how Manchester United, whoever may be in charge then, whether it's Michael Carrick, whether it's someone else, is able to handle that.
Of course, and one thing that I also want to mention, I guess, is I think these competitions are good. I think that these competitions are phenomenal for teams like this. I mean, it's added revenue. You have more things to play with, right? But I totally understand your concerns. That's 8 extra matches. And then what happens next year again? You have your cup matches. You have all these things, and it's in the summer. United needs to add depth to the squad. I think that the base of the squad, I think the attacking base with Cunha and Burmo, you possibly keep Fernandes. I think if Sheshko keeps developing, and you start adding these fundamental pieces to the defense, I think you're in a great position. But you also need to have people on the bench who are equivalent, if not just slightly less better than who you have on the pitch. So if someone goes down, if someone goes injured, or quite simply you need someone in the game, hey, we have this guy here. He's going to perform, and the level of play isn't going to drop significantly.
I agree. And I think looking back, I gave Manchester United's transfer window a lot of hate because they spent a lot of money on Sheshko, Bermo, Cunha, and I just felt like none of those guys were going to deliver at the level that Man United want to be at. And I've been wrong with Cunha and Bermo. Sheshko not quite there yet, especially as he was the most expensive piece. I think they need to add midfield and midfield depth. I think that's the most important. Casemiro, I think he's certainly been playing better down this 5-match run, but his legs aren't going to hold forever. Kabi Menu, yes, he's back into the fold now with Ruben gone, but, who else is there? Ugarte, Joao's favorite player. He actually has Ugarte's name and number tattooed on him. They need something. They need a big transfer window, which is funny enough the same as the team that we're going to talk about next, Joao. This team has a big transfer window every week. All right. I think, who this is going to be. Chelsea, fifth place. Liam Rosenior has really, really turned them around lately. Obviously, they have one of the most ridiculous, and I mean this politely, they have one of the worst showings I think I've ever seen from a professional football side that is down 3-2 on aggregate in the Carabao Cup semifinal. Losing that game 1-0, fine. Games end 1-0 all the time. Losing that game 1-0 when you were pretty much dominated, you created absolutely no chances in that match whatsoever. You were willing to sit back and defend. It's ridiculous from Chelsea in that game. But we're not going to talk about that because it's a little bit old now. But Chelsea, again, they've picked up their pace. Cole Palmer is breaking back into the fold. They're about to win against Hull City in dominant fashion. But as we say that, midweek, they draw 2-2 to Leeds. They were up 2-0. Cole Palmer missed a sitter at the end of the match. The expected goals tally, 3.13 for Chelsea. 5 big chances. To Leeds United's 1.44 expected goals, which includes a penalty. So it's really naturally about 0.6. I think actually it's like point. I'm not even kidding when I'm saying this, 0.67. Because the expected goal is 0.77. I'm not even trolling when I say that. I apologize to the people. With 2 big chances created. Joao Lara, 6-7 in there. Hey, and the penalty was scored in the 67th minute. How tough is that? Oh my God, my day's made. My day's made. But Joao, Chelsea, what are your thoughts?
Again, the side is just it's as volatile as a stock market. I want to say it's up one day, they're incredibly up. One day they're incredibly down. And then the stuff with Cole Palmer started as well, and Liam Rowe Sr. had to come out to the media at least 4 times. Be like, no, Cole Palmer's happy here. I thought that was somewhat weird, but no, we're here to talk about their football, right? Not their quite odd nuances that we see week in, week out from them. Here's the thing: this side, again, very young. This side is full of lots of talent. But I think injuries have been affecting them as well. I think they'd be a much better defensive side if they had that Levi Colwell. If Reece James could stay healthy for more than 2 weeks, I think that definitely help them as well. And it's just there's a lot of things this season which hindered Chelsea. I know last year I said at the beginning of the year where Chelsea's going to be Premier League champions. I really thought they had. I really thought they had it with the talent they had, with the money they'd spent. Obviously, that's not the case right now because of injuries and a lot of things going on. But hey, honestly, have fun. Try to continue developing and growing and getting familiarized to the style of play, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. And to be fair to Chelsea and Reece James lately, he's been the best he's been in years at staying fit this season since they won the Champions League. But I certainly agree. Him not being able to stay fit, it's a little bit rough. It's a little bit rough. I think with Chelsea is the main thing is just like, okay, you have so many players. Who can actually ever play for you, right? Like Cole Palmer, he's finding form. He had a really good game yesterday or a couple days ago against Leeds. But you've got 1,000,001 players in your squad. I don't know. I don't know. And Garnacho, God bless Garnacho. You know, I spoke about how he was putting Arsenal fans in fear after that game in the Carabao Cup semifinal first leg. That guy might be the worst player I've ever seen on the ball, but somehow he's worse off the ball.
Look, don't disrespect Zachariah, the Raw Six favorite player like that. But no, Garnacho is just he is a different specimen, and I mean this in the kindest way possible. He's just one game he's balling out. One game he's doing everything he possibly can. And he looks like a decent player. He goes out, has a flashy comment, has a very flashy comment midweek. Next game, just an absolute stinker. I don't understand why it is this way. I don't understand what makes him this way. Again, had drama at Manchester United, ends up leaving, joins Chelsea. Chelsea fans are not liking him at all as well, just because of this continuous cycle. Just very odd, very weird, and I don't know what his future is going to be, and it's very disappointing, right? Because in some moments he was regarded as one for the future, one that was going to be able to go ahead and lead a squad to victory, be that star player. Right now, I think it's very far from that.
I agree. I agree, and that's kind of really been Garnacho's kind of whole career at this point. You know, it's just kind of I don't know. It just hasn't quite lived up to the expectations. Joel, let's go back to North London, uh, but the other side of North London, the Tottenham side of North London. They let's have a laugh, right? Uh, we're bringing our losers of the week segment back. Tottenham, their loser of the week. That's our only winner or loser this week. Tottenham sacked Thomas Frank. They have been absolutely dreadful recently. They did just appoint an interim manager, Igor Tudor. I could be pronouncing that incorrectly. Igor Tudor. He is from Croatia. He has never managed in England. He has only won one trophy in his managerial career, and that was the Croatian Cup, which he of a club that he took over right before the final. That is Hajduk Split. Hajduk Split, right? I think that's how you say that. Uh, his last managerial job was in charge of Juventus. He managed 24 games from last March until this October. If you can't tell, he was sacked. He was previously at Lazio, where he lasted 11 games. He was also previously at Marseille, where he lasted a season. He was not good with Hellas Verona the year before that. I have really no idea what the decision making between behind going for a manager like this. Seems like he likes to play attacking football. Um, but more importantly, what on earth are Tottenham doing?
Given the blank expression on my face, I'm trying not to laugh, but I'm still very, very, very concerned at the same time. Reese, have you heard of the story of the footballer who went all around the world playing for all these different clubs? Like he faked his way through.
Oh
Like
yes.
he talked to someone at a newspaper. He got in with a club. He contacted another club. He's like, "Yeah, I'm this player. I played this many games. I did." This seems very similar because how are you gonna be? How are you gonna bounce around some of the big, or not even some of the biggest clubs, notable clubs in Europe, Juventus, Marseille, all these clubs, and not perform? I don't understand. And even then, what is going on in the offices of the chief executive officer and everyone who runs Tottenham? Because look at the situation you're in. 16th place, 29 points, 5 points away from the drop. That is absolutely insane. And if this manager isn't able to get a group together, oh my goodness, they're going to struggle. They're going to drop results. And it's only going to be a matter of time where, I don't know, where West Ham starts winning games, Nottingham Forest starts winning games. They continue to drop. And if Tottenham Hotspur does something in the Champions League and goes down, it'll be the biggest mind-boggling experience I've had in my life, and that's to put it kindly. I was going to use another word, but we do not use profanity because this is a family-friendly show.
So I'm looking through Igor Tudor's record and some of the articles posted by the Athletic. Right now, Juventus have obviously been in an absolute word that we can't say on this air. Right? They've been disasters. Okay. Um, there's a whole bunch of scandals there. He ended his time there with an 8-match winless run. The last 8 matches he's managed. Bless you, Joao. The last 8 matches he's managed, he hasn't won a game. He typically deploys. You're gonna love this part. A 3-4-2-1. He's done that since he was with Hellas Verona in 2021. Um, and I listen. I have no idea. I mean, the tenure at Juventus and Lazio, his last two managerial jobs, they both started as interim jobs. Lazio was never promoted to the full time gig, but I'm just puzzled. I'm so puzzled. I know he like can make like they're bringing him in because he makes a big impact immediately, and that's what happened last year with Juventus. He got in the Champions League, then he goes on an 8-match winless run. There's a lot of time left in the Premier League. You've got 12 games. You've got a Champions League tie coming up. You're gonna deploy if you deploy this 3-4-2-1. We'll see. Here's so okay. The first 9 games of his last 2 managerial tenures. Oh, I knocked my light. He's gone both times. This is weird. 5 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. That doesn't equal 9. So I have yes, it does. Sorry, a little bit of a math miscalculation. If he does that, that would get them to 47 points with 3 matches to go. That would be again 18 points. Who knows where it would put him just because that's a long way away. They're 5 points above the drop. Is this something that can happen, or is this something that, you're bringing in a manager with this track record and it's just destined to fail?
I'm trying to read more about this just because I want to see what happened and what they said. And I'm looking at the BBC right now. They're saying that they were looking for someone with European managerial experience and someone who loves playing attacking football. Sure, you tick 2 boxes. Where do you get the resume? Where do you see something working out in the long term, or for a sustained period of time? I have no words for this. Once again, I'm repeating myself. I sound like a broken record. Wins those first 9 games, the Juventus goes on to lose 8 in a row. Right after that, that's insane. That's mind-boggling. I have no words. This is the most Spursy thing I've seen in a long time. Spurs fans, again, I don't hate you guys. You guys make me laugh sometimes. I'm very concerned for you. If you know a Spurs fan, or if your family member's a Spurs fan, please check up on them in a couple of weeks, because I think this is going to go very bad. I don't have any other words for this.
I think the most exceptional part of it is you bring in a manager known for playing a 3-4-2-1. And what have Tottenham done the last few years? 4-3-3. 4-3-3, no messing about. Yeah, different changes over the years, little tinkering here and there. So I'm very intrigued to see how he can adapt. To be fair, they played a back three a few times. Oh, my AirPod came out. Oh, this is scary. They played a back three a few times under Frank, but anytime they played with Thomas Frank towards the end of the time, it was just like, hey, let's see what sticks. I don't want to talk about them too long. I'm bored of this because it's just like I feel sad. I feel bad. It's almost it's rude. It really is. Nottingham Forest. Let's talk about a side that's obviously a little bit, not a little bit, a lot worse. They've been just bizarre. I cannot tell you if there's been a team dumber than Tottenham until you look at just one spot below them in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest are currently on their fourth. I've got all 4 fingers on my camera now. 4th manager of the season. And they opened the season with Nuno Espirito Santos as their manager after a very good season last year in the Premier League, where they finished 7th place, got into Europe. Pretty good for them, right? They sack him after only 3 games in charge. They bring in Ange Postecoglou, who loses 4 of his 5 Premier League games, draws 1. Then bring in Sean Dyche. Okay, Sean Dyche doesn't really raise the ceiling, raises the floor ever so slightly, but hey, okay. Does okay. Like, it's okay. It's not great. It's fine. But he draws to Wolverhampton Wanderers, so he's gone. Now, this is the most bizarre one. The guy they're appointing, Vitor Pereira, did a really good job in his defense with Wolves last season. This season was an absolute disaster, and I just don't understand anything going on at that club at the moment.
And here's the thing with the team that they have as well, it's not like they don't have the pieces to succeed. They have Gibbs White, who last season was a great player. They have Anderson, who this season has been a great player. He's been linked to many sides, didn't end up leaving. It is what it is. Milankovic was pretty decent last year as well, but one of the best young center backs. I don't know what's going on. It's like it's like when someone wants to move on in a relationship to do better and to find themselves, and they just continue falling and falling, and it keeps getting progressively worse, and they don't know what they're doing wrong. Very similar to Nottingham Forest, honestly. It's honestly disappointing because I had this club as someone who was going to be top eight, as someone who was going to be competing just with the players and with Nuno, what he did last year. I thought he was going to be able to improve. It's also very concerning for Nottingham, right? They've been up, they've survived a couple of seasons now, and it's just there's a possibility of them going down again, and it's just to start from scratch after playing at a pretty high level a couple of seasons ago. Hey, it's not fair to the fans, and really they have to do better for those who put on the Nottingham Forest shirt.
Joel, let's make some predictions. We've got 14 games ago. We've done predictions before on the show, and we did predictions like 3 weeks ago. But there's 6 sides that I would really say are in the relegation race. Really, probably 5. All right. Wolves 20th. They're down. There's no way out. They can't win the title mathematically now, but really they're down. Okay. 19th Burnley. They're currently 9 points away from safety. Probably down, okay? That 18th place team, there's a 6-point gap between 15th and 18th, 5-point gap between 16 and 18. That's West Ham, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham, and then Leeds. Who do you think that 18th place side ends up being?
I'm gonna say who I think stays up first, and I'm gonna leave whoever. Yeah, make it like that. Leeds is safe. Leeds is staying up. I have West Ham staying up. I have Tottenham staying up on the last day, and I have Nottingham Forest going down. I think that West Ham they they're starting to find something right in their last five. They've only lost one. They've obviously come from drawing with Man United. I think that they're a squad that still has that chance to improve, and they have that more consistent base, and they have something they can sort of rely on, and they're not switching managers and systems, and they're not trying to adapt. I think West Ham stays up. I think that it's too difficult for Forest. I think that Tottenham is going to struggle once again. I've said it. It takes a good while to properly adapt to a new manager, a new system. You're playing a three back. You have Cuti Romero employed as a player of Tottenham FC. You're just it's a very sticky situation for Nottingham Forest and Tottenham, but I think Tottenham does just enough to stay up.
Uh, I think so too. I think I have to agree with you that Forest stays up, or Forest goes down, and West Ham stays up. But we'll just have to see where the points distribute themselves. All right. That
Well,
delivery wasn't that good, but I tried.
we'll have to see where the dart lands. If West Ham gets a little lucky, ends up hitting a couple triple 20s in the process, maybe we can see them.
See, I think the dart one lies a little bit better with Tottenham because James Madison.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out celebrations video. If you haven't watched it, go watch it right now.
That is certainly something. Joao, anything you want to talk about?
Let's talk about our club near and dear to our hearts that I really need to talk to soon because we're getting close to the season and they still haven't told me anything. Let's talk about Phoenix Rising. Why don't we? Obviously last year a little bit disappointing. They end up going to what Western Conference semifinals, correct?
Yes.
Western Conference semifinals, lose to Tulsa, extra time. Um, what do you think is the outlook for the season? Obviously, they've done a lot of moves um, defensively this season. They've I think that's great. I think last year they struggled defensively at times, and obviously with Pop Boy getting red cards and just Montgomery leaving the squad as well. I think you have enough depth where you're safe defensively. What do you think this squad needs to go far and maybe even surpass that Western Conference semifinals mark?
I don't know if this is something that they need or if it's something that I need to like have more security in that the fact that they have, because they've brought in players. There is Juan Carvajal, who's expected to be one of the number nines. Gunnar Studenhoft as well. He's from Next Pro. Isan Sako can play there. But none of those three really have elite track records as number nines. Juan Carvajal has 6 goals and 42 professional appearances, right? And I just need to see, okay, these guys are USL level, but also USL level strikers, right? And I just don't know if I've seen enough. I mean, Studenhoff last season scored 5 goals in Next Pro. That's not really the mark of a guy that you expect to see when he's making a jump. And I think that's my number one concern. I like the midfield. I think it's a little bit thin. We'll have to see how Diego Gomez fits into the side. I would have liked, just another guy like another number 8. But I do think that with the way it's set up, with the way the squad's set up as well, I think you're honestly setting yourselves up to play with back three, which is something that I wouldn't have wanted earlier in the offseason, because you don't have fullbacks in this squad. Yeah, Daniel Flores, Colin Smith, the only two. You can play them on the left or right. Then you could play like a Darius Johnson, Kelvin Arase as well behind them just because of the pace. And then play Damian Rivera, Isan Sako as like your 2 10s, and then one of Carvajal and Studenoff. But there's just not a lot of depth, I feel. And I know they've said the squad's pretty much filled out. But we'll have to see. I don't know. I'm not concerned. I think obviously retaining Jean-Eric Marceau is incredible. The signings they've made on the back line, bringing in Luke Biasi, keeping Rafa Chihos, bringing Pop Marboy back, Adrian Pelayo. I like those signings, but I don't know. I just need to see. I need more comfort in the attack. That's really number one.
Yeah, because obviously you also had great success last year, at least at the wings. I think Darius Johnson had great moments. I think that Sako once again was versatile. If you need him as a winger, hey, he'll go play as a winger. Right wing off the bench was always Charlie Dennis, who came up with these great genius moments, and his creativity was off the charts. Kelvin Arase, I think that he has something to prove. Right, he came in, he had these moments where he sort of struggled. He showed somewhat of a flash. I'd want to say in my own words. I think that this squad is very well composed, and I think that this squad could go ahead and compete for something this year. And I don't think there could be the excuses of injuries as well, just because you have that depth, you've put in that time, you put in that dedication. You sign a younger goalkeeper as well. I think that helps. Just because your average age of goalkeepers last year was what, 28, I want to say, because
No,
he
it
had
was
a
older than that. It was like
was it
31.
really?
Because
Be-
Rakovsky and Tristan Henry and Rakovsky are about the same age, I believe.
Yeah, they're 32 years old, and then you obviously have Jan Viegas as well, third selection goalkeeper.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I didn't consider him just because he's academy.
yeah, it's 27.3 if you're counting those three, 31 point something if you're concerning both goalkeepers. But either way, I think it's a great addition. I think that Odunze could provide something that was very well needed last season, just because Rakowski had great moments, but he was very inconsistent, right? Especially going on to those one on ones, especially being sort of that presence in the box. Sometimes he wasn't it, and I think that Rising needed that change. They address it. I think Pamaduka, he's at the wheel. I think he can cook something up for us here.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the ball
We'll
finds
have
the
to
back of the net.
no. We'll have to see how the tumbleweed rolls.
Oh, that's interesting.
Desert reference.
I do like Shitaru
Odunze.
Dunze. I don't know how to say his first name. We'll have to clarify that tomorrow at the friendly. 6'7" goalkeeper. That is what I want to see in a goalkeeper. I need a guy that big. Absolutely. Do it. 6'7", 6'7", 6'7". That's incredible. But we'll have to see how the tumbleweed rolls. That's interesting. Um Interesting.
Or
I'm just thinking about that.
we'll have to see how the train passes.
Oh, yeah, because the train's at the ground. Yeah, yeah. I like that. Um, we'll have to see how the smoke flies.
That's a good one as well.
Um, anything else you want to talk about?
No, not really. I mean,
Well, I
just once
do.
again, go ahead.
FA Cup. Let's talk about it ever so briefly, just to round it out. Um, Wrexham beat Ipswich today, 1-0. Don't really care. Man City, they got the most difficult draw I've ever seen. Do you know who they play?
Who?
Salford City. The
Oh
mighty
my
Salford
goodness.
City.
The month.
Aston Villa, Newcastle, Liverpool, Brighton. Arsenal played Wigan on Sunday. What are your thoughts on any of it?
I mean, once again, it's. I'm not gonna say it's early in the competition, but it's pretty obvious who really who's gonna win. Besides this, the matchups that have both Premier League sides playing, I hope to see some upsets. I love to see upsets. Um, but no, it's just teams taking care of business, teams allowing themselves to play something a little different, give players minutes who really haven't had them this year, and once again, it's something that we're gonna have to let pass, right? We're gonna see how the wave rolls, and we'll see which teams end up being contenders for this title. We could say.
We'll see. We'll see. I think that's gonna end it. I think that's gonna end it.
Time. No, but once again, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the hiatus, but thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your comments, likes, for following. Remember to follow us at all of our socials at the Inverted Microphone. That's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Working on Twitter soon, Spotify, and then we are also working on Apple Podcasts. Reese, where can our good friends find you on the social medias?
At Reese Goodall on Twitter. That's the only place I care about. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not locked in on my Instagram or TikTok. So, Joao, they can follow you to to Walmart, to Costco, wherever you go grocery shopping. But they can also follow you where?
At or at Joao Lara Jr. on Twitter, and I'm still logged in on the sports Instagram. So sports with Joao on Instagram, sports W as a little abbreviation, Joao Joao.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful game, but it's way more beautiful when Joao fails his medical at Manchester United and makes it back to the U.S. to record the Inverted Microphone. Thank you, guys.